On March 20th, 1815, Napoleon returned from Elba to Paris, setting shockwaves throughout Europe. This quickly led to the formation of the Seventh Coalition, comprising Austria, Prussia, Russia, Sweden, Denmark, Netherlands, Portugal, Spain, and his eternal enemy, Britain. There were also a ton of other minor powers that joined as well. The two sides eventually met at the Battle of Waterloo on June 18, 1815. It marked the culmination of 23 years of the Napoleonic Wars that had dramatically reshaped the course of European history forever. The Battle of Waterloo ultimately spelled the end of Napoleon's ambitions as he was defeated, and Bonaparte abdicated 4 days later, on June 22, 1815. Coalition forces, led by the Duke of Wellington and Prussian Field Marshal Blücher, firmly extinguishing Napoleon's powers forever. However, history is forever changed as Napoleon manages to escape after his defeat at Waterloo in our scenario. Evading British capture and avoiding any poisoning attempts, he somehow found his way to America, where he embarked on a new chapter in his life. In contrast to his years on St. Helena, Napoleon's life in America was far better. In reality, Napoleon died on May 5, 1821, at the age of 51. Many have speculated that the British poisoned him, but there's compelling arguments for either side. It is, however, undeniable that his conditions on St. Helena were atrocious and contributed to his death. His personal physician, Barry O'Meara, warned the English government that his declining state of health was mainly caused by the harsh treatment. Assuming he lived in good conditions in the States, there's reason to believe that he could have extended his life well beyond into his 70s. Among his 4 brothers, Joseph lived to 76, Lucien to 65, Louis to 67, and Jerome to 75. This means that Napoleon could reasonably live into the 1840s. During his time in New York, Bonaparte adapted to his new environment. He took the opportunity to learn English, further broadening his horizons. As word spread across Europe, particularly in Britain, that Napoleon had sought refuge in the United States, there would undoubtedly be demands for his extradition. However, the anti-British sentiment that still existed in America at the time might have led to a refusal to comply with such demands. Nonetheless, American authorities would keep a close watch on him. As the years passed and the tumultuous Napoleonic Wars became further away, Bonaparte's reputation would soften. He built up his wealth through various means in the United States, capitalizing on his fame and intelligence, and served as a valuable teacher for the army. Napoleon II, his son, managed to escape Austria and join his father in America. Father and son lived together, and the younger Napoleon grew to be similar to his father in many ways. Both eventually became U.S. citizens, marking the culmination of a remarkable journey that began with the defeat at Waterloo and continued with a new life across the Atlantic. As the man who famously declared, "I can no longer obey, I have tasted command, and I cannot give it up," it was highly unlikely that Napoleon would simply retire to live out a quiet life. Instead, he embarked on a new journey, teaming up with the young hotshot politician and war hero, Andrew Jackson, and entered the political arena. In real life, the Southern Democrat Republicans romanticized Napoleon as a peasant fighting against the corrupt aristocracy of the Old World, so he'd be extremely popular in the South. Andrew Jackson in real life also held immense respect for Napoleon. Moreover, he harbored a deep-seated hatred for the British, surpassing that of any other American politician at the time. This intense animosity stemmed from personal tragedy, as both his brother and mother had died during the American Revolution, leaving Jackson an orphan at the age of 14. This instilled a fervent disdain for values associated with Britain, particularly aristocracy and political privilege, 2 things he wanted to eliminate from American politics. Bonaparte remained a hated figure in the eyes of the British, making a natural alliance between the two men inevitable. In the 1824 elections, Napoleon threw his hat into the ring, running for the position of governor of Louisiana. The requirements to run for governor in Louisiana only mandate 5 years of U.S. citizenship, a threshold that Napoleon had now met. Simultaneously, Andrew Jackson sought the highest office in the land, running for the President of the United States. Their alliance, fueled by shared enmity towards the British and a desire for political change, proved to be a winning formula. In this electoral battle, Andrew Jackson emerged victorious, securing the presidency of the United States over John Quincy Adams, while Napoleon was elected governor. Jackson utilized his immense popularity to enact significant changes in the United States. The most notable was repealing Article 2, Clause 5 of the Constitution, a move that fundamentally altered the eligibility of criteria for the presidency. No person, except a natural-born citizen, or a citizen of the United States at the time of the adoption of this Constitution, shall be eligible to the office of president. Neither shall any person be eligible to that office who shall not have attained to the age of 35 years, and been 14 years a resident within the United States. Now this would not ever actually happen in real life, but it's the only chance for Napoleon to become president, making it an essential element for this timeline. After a successful 4 years as president and a successful 4 years as governor for Napoleon, Jackson decided to run Napoleon as his VP. As vice president, Bonaparte began to instigate French-Canadian independence, as both Jackson and he were eager to remove Britain from North America. Napoleon's influence extended beyond the realm of politics, as he also held an important position in the military and was in charge of West Point. This period saw America's military prowess ascend to new heights under Napoleon's guidance. His expertise and leadership ensured that the United States possessed the most capable army in the world, as he instructed the next generation of military leaders and ensured a cadre of extremely capable commanders with the newest tactics and training. Jackson still oversaw the dismantling of the Second Bank of the United States. Controversially, the Indian Act of 1830 began the forced relocation of approximately 60,000 Native Americans to lands west of the Mississippi River, clearing out Florida. The combined impact of Jackson's political maneuvering and Bonaparte's influence on American military power was the most tendentious period for the young nation. However, the Democrat Party was viewed very popularly, and the terms were viewed successfully by the people. Jackson still only served 2 terms here, and he endorsed Napoleon for the 1832 election. Napoleon's presidency from 1832 to 1840 saw a series of dramatic events and policy shifts that reshaped the North American landscape. One of the key moments during this period was the nullification crisis, where South Carolina asserted its right to nullify or invalidate federal tariffs it deemed unconstitutional, leading to a constitutional and political standoff. It played out the same here, with the compromise tariff of 1833 reducing the tariff rates. However, tensions still existed between the states and federal government. In 1832, tensions escalated in Lower Canada due to a combination of factors, including a cholera epidemic that killed thousands in Quebec and Montreal, struggling crops, and a violent incident on May 21st, where 3 supporters of the Patriots were killed by the British troops during a riot in Montreal. This incident sparked a revolt that took place in 1832 instead of 1838, as Napoleon had already been instigating for a revolution. The success of the revolt depended on support from the United States. Napoleon privately supported the Quebecois cause, providing aid to the Society of the Sons of Liberty, an organization named after the American Sons of Liberty, which had been founded by Samuel Adams during the American Revolution. This support resonated well with the American public, as they remembered French assistance during their own revolution. Bonaparte also made significant political moves within the Quebecois movement. He orchestrated the removal of Louis-Joseph Papineau from the head of the party due to Papineau's anti-Catholic stance, which clashed with Napoleon's reconciliation with the Church. Papineau was replaced by Napoleon's loyal brother, Joseph Bonaparte, who had been living in Philadelphia at the time. Initially, the Canadian revolts were led by Thomas Storrow Brown, but as it began to falter against British forces, they increased the call for American aid, leading Congress to declare war on June 24, 1833. The war was led by U.S. Major Generals Alexander Macomb and Napoleon II, who, despite being only 22 years old, was popular with the nation and the Democrats, but disliked by many of the East Coast elites. The U.S. and Canadian rebels achieved 3 major victories, with Napoleon II taking Quebec City in August of 1833, effectively cutting off resupplying routes to the rest of Canada via the Lawrence River. Macomb defeated General John Colborne at the Battle of Montreal in 1835, and Napoleon II crushed Colborne outside of Toronto at the Battle of Guelph on October 14, 1835, effectively ending the war. However, despite the British surrendering, word had not reached the continent of an official surrender, so Napoleon II marched into Rupert's Land alongside the Montreal-based Northwest Company and decimated their rival, the Hudson Bay Company. While this move made Napoleon II even more popular in Quebec, it outraged the British, and it was not sanctioned by the US government. Nevertheless, Bonaparte was proud of his son's actions, and Jackson publicly praised the move as bold, and he said he had a bright future in American politics. The Treaty of Munich, signed on December 2, 1835, was controversial in the States. Many wanted to directly annex Canada, but the South was deeply against it, as they did not want more free states, and they opposed a strong French and Catholic people from the Union. So the question became, how much land should the US take? Similar to the real Mexican-American War conundrum. This led to French-Canadian liberation, and they took eastern Rupert's Land, control of Hudson Bay, Upper Canada, and the Anticosti Island. The United States took Nova Scotia, Prince Edward's Island, and Cape Breton, and formed these to the state of Washington. They also added Newfoundland and New Brunswick as states. To maintain the slave balance, Florida became a state, while Texas was split in 2, becoming the states of Columbus and Texas, respectively. The US also paid minor war reparations to the British. There were various proposed names for this new French nation in the north, including Canada, New France, or Quebec. Ultimately, the nation settled on the name Canada. A classical liberal government was established, with Joseph Bonaparte serving as its first leader. The Parti Canadien, whose flag became the new national flag, was a dominant party, and Canada emerged as a strong Catholic nation. These developments helped improve the relations between the US and France, while permanently fracturing relations between the US and the UK. Napoleon's long-standing hatred towards the British became the position for the entire country over time. Napoleon's domestic policies during his presidency in the United States reflected his prowess as a skilled politician, much like he was in France. He brought his Bonapartist ideals and merged them with American patriotism, championing the idea of a popular leader confirmed by popular election, above party politics, promoting equality, progress, and social change, with a belief in religion as an adjunct to the state, a belief that central authority can transform society, and a belief in the nation and its glory as a fundamental belief in national unity. One of Napoleon's notable policy moves was enhancing the power of the president, strengthening the executive branch's authority, and he attempted to keep the president more politically neutral, to be seen as a unifying figure rather than a divisive one. Bonaparte took steps to protect the Catholic Church in the United States, a move prompted by such events as the August 11, 1834 mob attack on the Ursuline convent in Charlestown. Napoleon quashed anti-Catholic sentiments, going so far as to have prominent Protestant leaders Lyman Beecher and Horace Bushnell arrested, accusing them of being enemies of the nation's republicanism. He used secret police to suppress these anti-Catholic groups, resulting in far less anti-Catholic and racist sentiments in the US during the influx of Catholic immigration from Ireland and Germany in the late 19th century. Bonaparte also privately provided significant funds to build new schools throughout the nation, preventing the concept of the Blaine Amendment from taking shape. He eventually stopped the Indian Removal Act when the victory of the British was evident and the land in Florida became less important, preventing the Second Seminole War. The Treaty of Payne's Landing in 1832, which had led to the removal of the Seminoles from Florida in our history, was repealed by Napoleon's administration. Instead, he saw the value of leaving the Seminoles in Florida, as they had already adopted Western ways and legally protected their lands from settlers. Napoleon even facilitated the return of many Seminoles from Oklahoma, solidifying their loyalty to his leadership. Navigating the issue of slavery was complex for Napoleon, as his political base included the Southern Democrats, who were staunchly supporting it. While he personally condemned the slave trade, there was no strong opposition to slavery within his ranks. Bonaparte was pragmatic and not an absolutionist. Although he had a philosophical opposition to slavery, his approach would likely have been to toe the line on slavery rather than pressing the issue. Napoleon's most significant policy change was that to the legal code. He implemented major changes to the American legal system, moving it closer to the Napoleonic code that he had implemented in France. One of the main differences between the two systems was the treatment of legal precedent. In the common law legal system, legal precedents are highly important, whereas the Napoleonic system values the current law over past precedents. Napoleon's changes in the legal system weakened the power of the Supreme Court in favor of the president making final decisions. This shift transformed the entire American legal system to closer resemble Louisiana, which is the only state that has any influence from the Napoleonic legal code. The civil code was applied to various aspects of the law, including contracts, real estate transactions, wills, property disputes, and marriage. This shift also set a precedent for the federal government's authority over states, further consolidating power in the executive branch. The admittance of Texas to the United States strained relations with Mexico. The infamous Battle of the Alamo from February 23, 1836 to March 6, 1836 led to outrage across the nation and provided Napoleon with a pretext to act. Capitalizing on the public sentiment, Napoleon wasted no time and had Congress declare war on Mexico on April 8, 1836. Despite the treaties of Velasco being signed, Mexico's refusal to honor them fueled American desire for revenge. Napoleon handed over total control of the war effort to his son, and wanted him to make a global statement. In just 5 months, Napoleon II had led a successful campaign that crushed the Mexican forces and captured Mexico City. He moved so quick that there wasn't an opportunity for British support to reach Mexico, similar to France's inability to aid Austria in the Austro-Prussian War. The war ended with the Treaty of the Alamo, resulting in the complete annexation of Mexico by the United States. In our history, the United States did not annex all of Mexico due to the diplomatic backstabbing of Nicholas Trist. However, here, Trist is not involved, and the rapid outcome of the war meant that the long-standing idea of annexing the entire country was implemented. The rationale behind the expansion was driven by financial considerations, with Mexico's northern territories considered somewhat barren compared to the more arable and profitable southern lands. Additionally, annexing all of Mexico provided the U.S. Navy with access to southern ports, further expanding its reach. Also, the anti-Catholic view of Mexicans that existed in real life at the time held much less weight here because of Napoleon's domestic policies. As a result, the Panic of 1837 would not occur because the continued westward expansion allowed the American economy to boom, as manifest destiny was fully embraced. Eventually, Napoleon left office on March 4, 1841, having reshaped the nation to dominate North America and elevate it to a global superpower. His presidency marked a transformative period in American history that would forever change the world. Now that Napoleon had finally retired to live out his remaining years in privacy, America and the globe turned their eyes towards Napoleon II. He was poised for greatness, no matter what he chose, but as time rolled on, two options became clear. Option 1. Return to France. Napoleon II heard rumors of brewing unrest in France and the people's desire for his return. If he were to return to France and attempt to reclaim the throne, it could lead to significant political upheaval. Whether he would exact revenge on his father's enemies and become the next French emperor depended on various factors, including the level of popular support and international dynamics. It was possible that his return could reignite the Napoleonic era and shape the course of European history once more. Or there was option 2, remain in the US. Napoleon II could choose to stay in the United States, where he had a bright political career ahead of him. He might focus on guiding America to become the dominant global power, potentially overtaking the British as the world's hegemon. His influence in American politics could be substantial, and he might play a pivotal role in shaping the US foreign policy and expansion. If Napoleon II stayed in the US, it's possible that he could collaborate with his cousin Napoleon III, who historically became the French emperor. Such a collaboration might involve the United States aiding France in conflicts, potentially against Prussia or other European powers. This alliance could have significant implications for the balance of power in Europe and the world. Ultimately, the direction Napoleon II would take depended on his personal ambitions, political circumstances of the time, and the choices he would make in response to the opportunities and challenges presented to him. Do you think Napoleon II would go back to France and conquer Europe, or would he stay in America and further shape the nation as a president? I'm eager to read why in the comments section below. Comment and let me know how you think history would have changed if Napoleon had become the president. If you want to see a part 2, let's get this video to 5,000 likes.
Howdy folks, I'm Josh, and over on my channel, I decided to cover the opposite of this scenario. In my video, I asked the question of if Thomas Jefferson, who had served as the US minister to France, was forced out of the US by the Federalists to take refuge in France. And, upon his arrival, he then quickly proceeds to rise to prominence in the French government. So, if you enjoyed this scenario, make sure to head on over to my channel to see what happens in this alternate timeline.
I hope you enjoyed the video. Please let me know any full-fledged ideas you have for future topics. And if you want to get access to maps and more, check out my Patreon. Click here to see what would have happened if Spain and Portugal had united in 1498. Goodbye.